In the remote mountains of Tanzania, within the Serengeti National Park, lived an old solitary lion for many years. His body had grown frailer than before. His mane no longer had the brilliance of his youth and had thinned over time. When he was young, he was the leader of a great and powerful lion pride. His roar commanded respect, and the scars on his face alone were enough to make other animals flee. But the law of nature spares no one, not even the strongest. Old age gently knocked at his door when he realized his steps were no longer as agile, and his claws were no longer as sharp. He decided to leave the pride. He left in silence, leaving behind his golden days spent with his children and grandchildren on the savannah. Heading down the road of solitude, he journeyed into the wild mountains, where few men had ever set foot. The old lion found a small cave to use as his shelter. Each morning, he would slowly step out of his hiding place, lift his head, and listen to the wind blowing through the cliffs. Sometimes, he would remember the past, recalling his mighty roar when he chased away his enemies. But now, those memories were nothing more than distant whispers of the wind, soft and almost unreal. Each day, he hunted small prey to survive. His old wounds sometimes reopened, slowing him down even more. Yet, he clenched his teeth and continued his solitary life. Time passed. His health declined, but the fire of his will to survive still burned within him. His footprints barely marked the gravel, and only he knew how hard this past truly was. One afternoon, under a gray sky, he came across a deer at the mountain's summit. The old lion thought this might be a precious meal before nightfall. He gathered all his remaining strength to chase the deer. Despite the steep and dangerous slopes, it didn't last long, but his determination to hunt never wavered. The deer, panicked, fled toward a more distant cliff, hoping to escape the predator's claws. The old lion did everything he could to follow. Every muscle in his body was tense with effort. Suddenly, his paw slipped on a loose stone, sending him plunging into the void. He let out a short roar and desperately tried to hook his claws onto the cliff's edge to hold on. But the strong wind destabilized him even more, making each attempt to survive increasingly difficult. The deer had vanished, leaving the old lion hanging halfway up the dangerous cliff. He growled fiercely, letting out a cry that echoed throughout the valley for 3 hours. For the next 3 hours, the lion struggled relentlessly, trying to climb back up with all his strength. His roar, once powerful, gradually faded into a faint whimper. His claws slowly slid down the rock, leaving barely visible long scratch marks. Exhausted and at his limit, he slowly realized his body was giving up. He lifted his eyes toward the gray sky as if finally accepting his fate. This was where it would all end. But sometimes, fate smiles at the very last moment, bringing an unexpected miracle. At that precise moment, a man named Kamal, an employee of the Serengeti National Park, was passing nearby. Kamal had many years of experience in caring for and protecting wild animals. On his way to the management center, Kamal suddenly heard the faint groan of a lion. He immediately stopped the car and quietly got out to check the situation. Following the sound, Kamal discovered the old lion hanging from the cliff. The sight both surprised and worried him. Despite the obvious danger, he decided to find a way to get closer and help. Kamal knew that if he waited for the rescue team, the lion might no longer have the strength to hold on. Seeing the old lion trembling, he realized it had been stuck there for a long time. Its old muscles were twitching, clear signs of extreme exhaustion. Kamal tried to approach slowly, careful not to frighten the animal, crouching down and speaking softly. He wanted to calm the beast. The old lion lifted his head to look at him, as if he understood that this man had come to help. His roar turned into a low, soft growl, far less fierce than before. Kamal sat a little closer and said, "I'm going to save you, but please don't hurt me." The lion nodded and lowered his gaze, as if accepting the help and placing his trust in him. Kamal took a deep breath, knowing he had only one chance to pull the lion up safely. He firmly grabbed the lion's front paws, feeling the crushing weight of a body weakened by age. The old lion, for his part, tried to push hard with his hind legs against the rocky wall. Every passing second became a true psychological battle between fear and hope amidst falling stones and dust. Rocks tumbled down, making the scene even more dramatic. Kamal clenched his teeth and summoned all his strength to hoist the old lion up, inch by inch. His arms burned with fatigue, his heart pounded wildly, but he refused to give up. Finally, the old lion was saved, lying stretched out on the ground. Kamal, exhausted, collapsed to his side as well, panting and completely drained. The lion panted heavily, his breath echoing in his chest. But he was safe. Kamal stepped back cautiously, keeping his distance to avoid any unpredictable reaction. Time seemed to stand still. Slowly, man and beast looked at each other in silence, both exhausted. Once he regained a bit of strength, the old lion slowly sat up. He shook his heavy head and turned his clouded eyes toward Kamal. In his eyes shone a glimmer of gratitude that words could not express. Kamal stood motionless, sweat running down his face, but he managed a faint smile. He knew he had just accomplished something extraordinary, driven purely by compassion. The lion slowly approached, making Kamal flinch, but he had no aggressive intent. On the contrary, he lowered his head all the way to the ground as if to bow. It was his instinctive way of expressing gratitude. Kamal gently placed his hand on the old lion's back. A rare, almost unreal moment between man and beast. They seemed to understand each other, despite the boundary that separated them. Kamal raised his hand to say goodbye, knowing he should not go any further. The lion lifted his head and let out a soft, respectful growl in response to his farewell. At that moment, the dark clouds began to break, finally letting the sunlight through. Kamal walked slowly toward his car, casting one last glance back to make sure the lion was okay. The animal gently followed him for a few steps, his paws still trembling with pain, like an old friend. He watched him until the old car disappeared from sight. His eyes remained fixed on the road, like those of a creature thanking its savior. Kamal got into his car and closed the door, but his gaze never left the lion. Suddenly, he recalled the animal's younger days, when he was still a proud and formidable leader. Time had been cruel, stripping him of his strength but leaving the pride in his heart untouched. Kamal started the car gently, heading toward the management center. As for the old lion, he slowly turned his back and resumed his walk, each heavy step leading him toward the distant forest. He had just experienced the miraculous encounter where man and wild animal had supported each other through adversity. Then, rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, as if to bless these two lives that had just escaped death. Kamal knew that this story would remain etched in his memory forever. And the old lion, saved that day, would also carry this unforgettable memory. All of it. In the mountains of Serengeti National Park, the steep cliffs now stand as silent witnesses to this compassion. The story ends with a deep roar of the old lion echoing through the heart of the forest, like a song of gratitude to life. Dear friends, thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to support us.